Hi, my name is Joe Woodard. I'm making this video as part of the application package for Homeschool Connections. Um, and so I'll just jump right into it. Who am I? I was born in Canada of American parents, born as a baby boomer, which causes me endless embarrassment. Uh, I was, my mother was a Puerto Rican cultural Catholic. My dad was a lapsed Methodist, Tennessean Methodist. Um, I dropped out of the church at the age of 15, the occasion for which was my first extremely ugly Novus Ordo Easter Vigil. Um, uh, I had never had any desire to become an altar boy, but for some reason, throughout Lent, I would always go to daily mass every day during Lent. I became a principal over maybe 4 years of middle school. And then when I hit 15, I guess, um, I was exposed to my first Novus Ordo, very ugly Novus Ordo Easter Vigil. And I parenthetically, yes, there can be very beautiful Novus Ordo masses. We attend a very well done Novus Ordo parish. But as I said, this was my first exposure to a very ugly Novus Ordo Easter Vigil. Went home and told my mom that I wasn't going to church anymore. Um, yes, you are. No, I'm not. Yes, you are. No, no, you're. Yeah. Um, let's go talk to the priest. Liberal priest, of course, said, "Oh, don't make him go to mass." Blah blah blah. Right. So anyway, I lapsed from the church at the age of 15, um, and then at the age of 19, I guess 18, 19, uh, started university and went to started off in organic chemistry, and then got sucked into political philosophy. Uh, the usual route in some sense, modern liberalism, Marxism, Nietzsche, and then rescued by Plato, essentially. A very good Plato professor. And as I was finishing up my undergraduate, I met Jacob Klein of St. John's College, the author of the very good book on the Mino. And from that point on, all I ever wanted to do was teach Western civilization in a small college. Uh, it didn't turn out that way, but it wasn't for lack of trying. Um, I then did a master's in political philosophy at Dalhousie. Did a qualifying year in classics because I thought I was going to go sideways in classics. So did a qualifying year in classics out at the University of Victoria, and then I found out about the new Masters in Great Books at St. John's Santa Fe. So I moved down to Santa Fe, and did that master's program, and then needing a PhD, ended up at Claremont Graduate School. Uh, if I'd had my druthers, I might have gone to University of Dallas instead. But I actually talked to the Alvarezes at Dallas, and they said they were in a hard time there. And given the range of places available, it did certainly look like Claremont was going to be my best option, and it proved to be wonderful. Um, in that period, I ended up returning to the church. First, the partly what was happening at St. John's. Not that St. John's is not, by any stretch of the imagination, a Catholic school. Uh, I intellectually ended up back in the church as a result of Homer, Plato, Aristotle, St. Augustine, St. Thomas, Dante, Shakespeare, C.S. Lewis, Christopher Dawson, the guy who deserves to have all sorts of institutions named after him. Um, and they basically ended up back in the church about 2 or 3 years into my PhD program. I should say that intellectually, Western civilization intellectually prepared me to get back into church. The motive force was actually the abortion issue. while I was at St. John's for the first time in my life, I lived in residence. I was about 6 or 8 years older than most of the freshmen there. Um, and for some reason, I ended up sort of a older brother to about three or four well-heeled, privileged young women who, after an evening studying, would burst into tears crying about the babies they had aborted. You know, at which point you begin to realize, as Plato should start you realizing, that it's not all a matter of postmodern we choose our morality. Um, there's a long and involved stories in all of this, of course. On the intellectual side, and then the motive, the love side, as Augustine would say, coming largely out of the abortion issue and young women I knew who had had abortions, and you know, it's a long, complicated story. Let's just leave it at that. So anyway, as I was, halfway through my PhD program, I started my first full-time teaching job. I was still ABD at that point, or prior to being ABD. Um, and during that period, met my future wife. A year later, a year and a half later, we got married and started having children. Returned to Southern California to finish up my PhD. Finished that up in '88, I think, and went to and then taught at one, two, three, I think three or four colleges or universities. Um, but then in 1992, hadn't been married, I guess, 6 years, and back in Canada, on a maternity replacement position 2 year. 1992, I had to drop out of academics, and it was a painful time. As I said, I never wanted to do anything other than simply teach great books or Western civilization in a small college, and it was just impossible. Um, I won't go into the long, dreary story. It was a painful time. In retrospect, it was probably the best thing that could have happened to me. Uh, from a natural perspective, Aristotle says you never regret decisions that are rationally made, even if you later find out that, other information, you might have made a different decision. If it was a rational decision at the time, you don't regret it, and that's true. Um, but even more so from a providential perspective, things happened during that period that, ever since then, if like for example, the deathbed conversion of my father, which would not have happened if we hadn't been here, and we wouldn't have been here unless I dropped out of academics. So, it's one of those sort of do the math sort of situations. Providentially, everything worked out far better than I ever could have planned on my own resources, and I ended up with a far better life than I ever could have expected. Um, like I say, after I left academics in '92, I had 15 years of journalism, which was interesting, really interesting, and then 11 years as a government judge, essentially tribunal. Last 6 years as a citizenship judge, which was amazing. Just a wonderful job. Um, but as I said, I never really wanted to do anything other than teach Western Civ and philosophy, or political philosophy, or history. And during that whole period, those whole 26 years, when I was outside of academics, I did teach adjunct at every opportunity. Please check my resume. You'll see, at every opportunity, I tried to teach, including teaching Latin at our little independent Catholic school here while my kids were attending there. Um, so yeah, as I say, I left my citizenship judge position 6 months ago, and ever since then, I've been trying to put together something by way of teaching because it's all I ever wanted to do. So now, what would I like to teach? Um, First, Plato. I think I think there's no better entree into philosophy than Plato's Republic, honestly. For perfect for grade 11, grade 12 aged students. It for a couple of reasons. First off, for at least three reasons. First off, if they read Plato's Republic, they will never again be intimidated by any other great book. You know, Republic's as great as they get. You can understand it. It can be made understandable to that age group, and like I said, they'll never be intimidated by a great book again. Uh, Secondly, I don't think any better vehicle uh, to provide entree or a template for exposing kids to the lost concepts of philosophy, right? lost con, you know, higher and lower, right? As a natural concept of experience, higher and lower, the soul, the transcendentals, the true, the good, the beautiful. Um, you know, the practical intellect versus the contemplative intellect, leisure a la Joseph Pieper, right? There's no better vehicle than the Republic to sort of uh, recover for kids the lost words of natural experience, of reality, the lost words of reality that have been eradicated by modern and postmodern philosophy, ideology. Um, so Plato's Republic would be one. World War II, I just realized I'm hitting the 12-minute mark here, so I better speed this up. Um, I've already taught World War II online, and it's wonderful. I think it's a really good experience to teach kids um, a fixed, crucial period in history where great men are making really important decisions in the fog of war, right? You know, it teaches prudence. It teaches tolerance of human uncertainty. Uncertainty in the world, and it also teaches the very real force of evil in the world, evil in history. The ineradicable presence of evil in history. Um, So that's two, Republic, World War II. Third might be, it'd be really nice to do I've contributed to this history. You'll see it on my CV. 12-volume history of Christianity or history of the Christians, right? And, you know, and I also did during my graduate school days, late antiquity, which is a really wonderful period, very much like today. Um, but I believe you already have outlines of church history, so I don't want to step on anybody else's toes there. Um, Also, I mean, I spent 15 years as a journalist, and you may have discovered that realized that there are that journalism is journalistic writing has died, and it'd be really nice. Well, I mean, if kids are interested, if there's interest for it, I'd be more than willing to teach journalistic writing. Um, let's see what else. I can't remember whether I've actually told you at this point that I am currently teaching a course up at a seminary in Edmonton, 180 miles away. I commute 3 hours in the morning, teach a course for 3 hours, and then commute back 3 hours in the evening, in the early evening. In the fall, I've been teaching Introduction to Ancient and Medieval Philosophy, using primarily uh, Plato and St. Augustine. So it's sort of a general introduction to the God of the philosophers versus the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Boom, right? In the spring, I teach, again on Wednesdays, I teach Introduction to Modern Philosophy, Machiavelli, Hobbes, Descartes, Rousseau, Descartes. Um, who else? Hegel a little bit, and maybe a touch of de Tocqueville at the end. Um, What can I say? I would really, really, really like to teach for Homeschool Connections. I've done online teaching before. Frankly, honestly, I prefer the classroom. But back when I did it 10 years ago, there wasn't all this video technology. It was simply voice, right? So it may well be the case that I find there's no problems with this, with using the video technology as a video classroom. Um, and I'm certainly willing to try. Um, yeah, I guess that I probably given you enough exposure to me, warts and all, so I should probably just call it quits at this point. Thank you for your patience. And I hope something happens here. Thanks very much. Bye bye.